Okay, so if you're watching us on our Facebook live stream, if you're listening to us right now, I am proud to introduce our second guest for this hour, represented from Degenerate Artists Against Fascism. Sir, can you please introduce yourself to our live streaming audience and our audio audience?
Yeah, what's up? I'm Ted Sirota.
All right, Ted Sirota. So I think for the most part, we did have a representative from Refuse Fascism, and I know that Degenerate Artists Against Fascism is another branch of Refuse Fascism. You guys have done a lot of collaboration, protesting the Trump administration and its policies. So I think for a lot of our audience, I don't know anything about your organization. So what do you guys do in regards to community outreach, as well as organizing protests and at least using art as a way for people to express themselves?
All right, well, I mean, first off, I should say that degenerate artists, like, what does that mean? Degenerate Artists Against Fascism? Well, before I forget, we are on Facebook. There's an open page. You could also join we have a closed group, which is monitored very closely. We have had 0 trolls inside of it. So if you're interested in connecting with other artists around the world in a somewhat private, secure setting, as much as we could be, it's a good place to connect. We've got over 2,000 artists in there now.
Oh, wow.
We also have, we're on Instagram and Twitter. So just put in Degenerate Artists, working on a website hopefully pretty soon, and a podcast. So, yeah, a lot of times forget to plug how do people connect with us,
Right.
Also, I found out that, to sort of set the record straight a little bit and just to be clear, I started this group in December 2016.
Okay.
Just, I saw artists around me. Most of the people I deal with are musicians and artists.
Right.
And people they were so depressed and they didn't want to, it was just like Haagen-Dazs and cuddling up with the cat. And I mean, Hillary lost. Now I'm being a little, over the top with it. But, a lot of us have been following this trend in this country for decades now.
Right.
So for me, it didn't hit me as a surprise. It didn't knock me off balance.
Yeah.
It just immediately set me in motion the day that Trump was elected.
Right.
So, not that I hadn't been in motion all 8 years under Obama and all 8 years under Bush and all the years under Clinton and all the years under the first Bush and all the years under Reagan.
Right.
But this is now a new stage. This is what we're talking about is fascism. This is a leap, a qualitative leap.
Right.
It's a change in how society is governed.
Right.
It's an attack on democratic norms. It isn't easily turned around. So, I felt it was time to act. And as an artist, I'm a drummer. I'm a musician. That's how I've made my life, basically. I express myself through art. I'm very interested in art, in the history of art. Also, my great-grandfather was murdered in the Holocaust in Poland. His whole village was rounded up, men, women, and children, and they were forced to dig their own ditch, and 200 men, women, and children, including him, who had emigrated here already, but went back to sell his plot of land. They left some land there.
Okay.
Bad timing. Yeah. So, I grew up with the story. I had many other relatives that were wiped away in the Holocaust. And I also learned as a child that it wasn't the only Holocaust. Yeah. That there was a bigger Holocaust that took place here on this soil that lasted a longer time, but was much bigger.
And the devastation towards the Native American populations and independent people that were basically exterminated.
Yeah. There was also another Holocaust called the Middle Passage and slavery.
Yeah, I think
Right.
there's that one Holocaust that happened in Democratic Republic, what is now the Democratic Republic of Congo, which was under the rule of King Leopold II. And if anyone's really interested in history and learning the brutal parts of that situation there, read up on it, because King Leopold II definitely passed some very harsh and very proto-fascist policies towards those people.
The Belgian Congo.
Yeah, the Belgian Congo. Thank you. Yeah.
And
which is now the Democratic Republic Congo.
When they did finally elect a democratic, freely elected leader, the CIA had him assassinated. So that's a whole other story. Yeah. But Yeah, and that's the story of Patrice Lumumba. If people are interested, there's a good movie on it called Lumumba. If you want to know the role of the United States, that type of thing, the CIA in history. However, what we're dealing with here is a broader thing. Like, personally, I'm a revolutionary. I think that this whole system is rotten to the core and cannot be reformed. And that it may be this lifetime, it may not be this lifetime. The earth may be destroyed before humanity has a chance to remove these shackles, But however, I think that is what needs to be done. But that's not where we're talking about necessarily with Degenerate Artists Against Fascism, which, getting back to the point, I set up this group the day that it was announced that Trump was going to announce Rex Tillerson as his Secretary of State. And to me, that was just like, the whole thing was insane. I knew Trump was a fascist from the moment he stepped onto the stage, whether he knew it or not. He is a fascist, Your actions, your ideology, your methodology determines who you are, not what you say. What you say does too, in his case, though. However, that was just like, okay, they're going to make the CEO of Exxon Secretary of State. This is just, fascists double down on everything. You tell them you can't do something, then they do it twice as much, and they shove it in your face. You tell them that, oh, you're colluding with Russia, they tell you, no, you're colluding with Russia. And here's our shred of evidence. So there is no truth. It's about the destruction of objective truth. That's bigger than what we've been dealing with up to this point, unfortunately. Good old-fashioned, horrific for the planet U.S. imperialism, which has been, in my opinion, a nightmare for all of humanity since its inception. That it has been the number one killer, murderer, terrorist on the planet. But that's not what I get people to unite around with Degenerate Artists, which I set up. And then a week later, Refuse Fascism came out in New York. And I read their call to action and their analysis of the situation and what their plan was moving forward. And I said, yeah, damn straight. Every word of it is right on point. And I wrote a 10-point program for Degenerate Artists. Like, here's what we unite around, points of unity. And the last one is we unite under the banner of Refuse Fascism under the call. So politically, people that want to really identify with Degenerate Artists need to look at Refuse Fascism's call, their analysis, and read it. And examine it and debate it and discuss it, And if you disagree with 90% of it, let's get into it, Okay. So, yeah.
So when it comes down to, of course, dealing with Trump and his administration and his policies, the one thing that a lot of people have said that have allowed for its creation to happen in the very first place was neoliberalism. And as we all know the history of it, it really started during the Reagan administration, and it was continued on towards with the Bush administration, Clinton administration, Bush Jr., and even under President Obama. So really, we all know the threats and dangers of fascism, but also at the same time, too, how do we address really the impact of neoliberalism? Because with neoliberalism, it seems that working class people are denied proper education or the ability to get informed about the arts or even have a sustainable lifestyle because of neoliberal and neoliberal policies.
Okay, that's a good question, and I don't want to dominate the direction, but I also just want to, because I rambled on there a little bit, a lot of people don't know what we mean by degenerate artists. And as soon as Hitler came to power in 1933, one of his first acts was to commission the building of a new art museum in Munich, a beautiful new museum that would display, his vision as a failed artist, what Aryan art will look like, what the ideal German art should look like. And across the street from that, they were going to build an exhibit that looked like this on the walls, but much, like crooked and spray paint. And it was the Degenerate Art Show, right? And there they hung the pictures crooked, and they hung Jew art and Negroid art and Bolshevik art, and it was Picasso, and it was Max Beckmann, it was Otto Dix, it was Marc Chagall, it was Kandinsky. It was all the artists that I would want to be, and the Degenerate Art Show, which was supposed to be a counter image of what was now going to be accepted in the new society and what was not going to be accepted. They said people lined up around blocks. They were coming in to say farewell to art and culture. They knew that this was going to be the end. The Nazis looted, 20,000 works of art immediately. If you were an art director or a university professor or art historian and you showed this art or taught it, you were arrested or fired, So part of why I did it is to spread this message I didn't understand until I came back out once Trump came to power, how few youth and people even know what fascism means and had ever even heard the story of degenerate art in Germany, because it happened with music too. They gave dance band directors instructions on what was allowed and what wasn't allowed, what tempos were allowed, what keys. Don't play minor keys because they're gloomy and Jewish. You can't play in between, above 120 beats per minute because that's a Negroid tempo. This is stuff that happened, and it's happening again now in many parts of the world. Anyway, so to get back to your point on neoliberalism, kid.
Yes.
I find that a lot of people on the left are putting the cart before the horse with this. Like, we have a fire. There is a state of emergency. Now, has it been a state of emergency under neoliberalist, U.S. imperialist, capitalist regimes up to this point? Yes. Ask the people in Vietnam, ask the people in Haiti, ask the people in Honduras, ask the people in South Korea, or in Korea, on the Korean Peninsula, in the Philippines, in Indonesia. It's been a nightmare. Mm-hmm. Ask black people in this country about U.S. imperialism and good old Uncle Sam. Like we say, hashtag America was never great. It was never great. Okay, but we need to understand that what's happening now is taking something that is horrific and taking it even to a next level. Okay, it's a qualitative leap. So the little gains that we've won as people, struggled, as all types of people that have struggled for this rights, but especially civil rights struggle, and people, men, women, and children being bombed and lynched and beaten and clubbed and had dogs sicked on them and had fire hoses and refused to be served and refused to be able to go into a front door, and all this struggle that we've gone through, and Malcolm X and little Bobby Hutton and Fred Hampton and Martin Luther King and Medgar Evers and all this murder, Nat Turner, John Brown. And what do we have? We've won some gains, some crumbs in this system, and we need those crumbs to survive. But that is not enough for humanity. For me as a revolutionary, we need to go beyond that. Okay, but first thing is first we need to put the fire out.
Okay.
And we need to get rid of these fascists. We're sitting around here watching this now. People are looking to the system itself, the neoliberal system, which allowed this to come to fruition. Because why does fascism happen? They put out this fallacy that fascism could be a left wing or it could be a right wing, and they've turned reality, like they do with everything, with fake news. Fascists. Oh, you're the fascist because you don't let Ann Coulter speak on campus. No. We're anti-fascist because Ann Coulter is spreading fascism and we're countering it. So this is this whole trick, this whole game of turning things upside down and obscuring the truth, destroying objective truth, destroying what that means. But, we are normalizing it. And this is very dangerous. And we're already seeing the consequences around the world, because when you say the big old Uncle Sam says, hey, you're fake news. Well, then Duterte in the Philippines looks at his press and says, hey, you're fake news too, but you're going to jail right now. Erdogan in Turkey just did that. Mm-hmm. Arrested, 12, 14 journalists and convicted them. They're going to jail. So people in the United States don't understand. Do you want to see where we're headed? Keep an eye on Turkey every day. Keep an eye on Hungary every day. What we're experiencing now is like the 1930s once again. And people here think that, if we pull the lever in November, we're going to go back. What we're trying to say with Refuse Fascism, and I'm trying to say as an artist, is there is no going back at this point. Donald Trump and Mike Pence and their whole regime has been in power for over a year now. This has been uncorked. You can't stuff the genie back in the bottle. It's about putting the fire out now and showing a united front of people in this country that understand that this has to be defeated. And when you start that process, when you see the youth that came up around the gun movement here and assault weapons and everything, you saw the youth awaken. We need that right now. The 1960s would not have happened without college campuses, without SDS, without the youth, burning draft cards, all of that stuff. We're not going to get rid of these fascists. And if we don't do that, we're not going to get rid of neoliberalism. You can't get rid of neoliberalism first. Fascism is an outgrowth of capitalism. You know, their crisis, they had a huge crisis in 2008, you know, and they played the card by allowing a black president for 8 years. In my opinion, I'm not speaking as Degenerate Artists Against Fascism or Refuse Fascism, but as me, how I see it, Barack Obama was a release valve for this system. You know, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I know as we're getting close to our nearing the end of our show, I know we got like a few more minutes left.
Yeah, we got 7 minutes left.
Yeah. So I think real quick, this will be a 2-part question. Are there any kind of projects or events that Degenerate Artists Against Fascism is going to do here that so our listeners can know more about it? And also, I know you plugged it already, but I think it's very important for people again to hear where they can find you on social media because, you know, obviously people want to contribute. People are very upset with Trump and his policies. So again, 2-part question: what kind of projects or events is your organization working on? And at the same time, where can we find you guys on social media?
2 excellent questions, I might add.
Thank you.
We are actually, our next event is going to, we've had a number of events up to this point. May 13th, which is Mother's Day, Dia de las Madres. So kiss your mom, take her to brunch, and then that night we're doing a benefit called Basta Ya, Latin Music versus the Trump-Pence Regime. It's a benefit that Degenerate Artists Against Fascism is putting on in order to raise money for Refuse Fascism Chicago chapter. So we're going to have some great, confirming the bands right now, but some great local Latin bands. We're going to have a jam session, a lot of great Latin jazz musicians and percussionists. There's going to be a lot of dancing. It's a great art gallery, Fulton Street Collective on Hubbard Street. So there is a Facebook event for that. Just search Basta Ya. That means enough. And, you know, because why Latin music? Because, well, we see that one main characteristic of fascism that a lot of leftists leave out when they examine it is the scapegoating and the genocidal factor of it. You know, the build the wall, Mexicans are rapists, there's a caravan coming to, you know, rape your children. That whole thing, the scapegoating of immigrants is the bleeding edge of this. And the ICE raids are very Gestapo-like, the tactics that are, and people are sleeping on that, you know, we have millions of brothers and sisters in this country, our neighbors, you know, people we do come into contact with at the store and in the street who are living in terror and fear, the same kind of terror and fear that people like my great-grandfather were living with under Nazi rule. Okay. That's going on today. So, yeah, and they can find us on social media. Just put in Degenerate Artists in Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And also we'll have a DVD coming out and a video soon because we did a great show last April. It's been about a year now, been a busy year, that we did at Constellation with some great Chicago jazz and world music artists. And like I said, look for a podcast coming out. Been compiling interviews with some great artists around the country. And check out the art of people that have stepped up and identified as, hey, I'm a degenerate artist. People locally like Julie Wood, saxophonist Tony Fitzpatrick, the artist, Perry Hoberman, who was a projectionist for Laurie Anderson in L.A., and Hal Hefner. This saxophone kills fascists. That's Arrington Dionysus in Portland, a great artist. Karen Fiorito, who did the Trump billboard in Phoenix with the mushroom clouds behind him and the dollar signs that look like swastikas. You know, everyone's getting the T-shirts. And, you know, this is what we have to do. We're not professionals. Everyone's working, trying to make a living, and they're organized. They're in power, you know. We have to unite. We have to come together. As we have more than them. That's the thing, you know. But we have to unite as artists, whatever you do. If you're a union member, if you're at your church, you know, whatever walk of life, if you work in a hospital, you know, people need to start making bonds and connections. That's the actual resistance, not voting for some Democratic candidate who's being pushed by the DNC and is pro-life. Okay, this is how we got to where we are. The Democrats following and tailing the Republicans to the right, to the right, to the right, to the right, to the point where you have Bill Clinton, who's where Nixon was. Right. You know, now the Democrats. That's a suicide pact. They need to step out of the way and get behind the people, you know, and we need to make them do that. There's a crisis in society in the ruling class, but the crisis that they haven't faced yet is the crisis of the people and their tens of millions getting in the streets and clogging up the system and gumming up the gears and saying, we will not accept this.
Right.
You cannot treat our brothers and sisters. You cannot treat the planet like this. You cannot treat us like this. This is beyond the pale. This is illegitimate by any human, standard.
Right.
And we demand that they're gone, like they did in South Korea.
Right.
We'll get them out.
And that's
you can imagine when we shut down Chicago, New York, and L.A. for a couple days? That's billions of dollars. That's a global financial crisis. That's stock markets, the Nikkei, everything just plummeting. And all we have to do is a bunch of freaking dudes like us and women and children and grandmothers to get in the streets,
right,
and stay there.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I do agree with you, and that's something that people need to do to get actively involved. And Ted, I do want to thank you so much for being on our show, and to all our viewing audience who are listening to us on Hard Lens Media, on our Facebook page, YouTube channel, and here at Q4Radio.org. We'll be back next Saturday. If you want to learn more about us, we have a website, hardlensmedia.com. And if you want to support independent media, Hard Lens Media has a Patreon page. So please, continue to help us out, donate. It's our main heart and backbone so we can produce more content like this. Peace, everyone, and let's all do what we can to build a better future.
You're watching Hard Lens Media.